Hello, everyone, and welcome to the intro to Converting Appointments to Contracts with your coach, Richard Schulman. This webinar is being recorded, and feel free to share this webinar with anyone in your market center. If you have any questions, please type them into the questions box located in your taskbar. Any questions after the webinar, please email us at fasttrack@kw.com. That's FASTTRACK@kw.com. That's all for me, Richard. You can get started.
Hey, thanks, Paige. How you doing? Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us, and welcome to our webinar. So in the next 25 minutes or so, we're going to go through a brief overview of the class, and we're going to do some real-world examples and kind of get some learning out of it. So my goal today is to give you an exposure to what the class is that we're doing, and also to give you a really good sense of how we're going to do that by giving you some actual examples to chew on. So let's jump right in. If you have any questions, you can put them in the question panel on the right. So who am I? I'm Richard Schulman. I'm an agent here in the Los Angeles Santa Monica Market Center. I've been at Keller Williams for a little bit over 11 years. I've sold in that time $600 million in homes, although I'll tell you in the last 4 years I've sold $400 million of those $600 million in homes, as I've really gotten focused on training. So in the last few years, I've really gotten serious about showing up to a lot of the trainings at my office, regionally and nationally, as well as coming to the regular big events like Family Reunion and Mega Camp. So since then, I have built a 17-person team, and I have used these rough classes to train my team, and MAPS has asked me to bring that training to them, to everyone else for them. So in the next 30 minutes, we're going to be talking about some actionable items and how to sign up for the class, which starts this Friday. So the actionable items are going to be things you can actually take home and use with you today. Okay, so what business are we in? And I asked this very obvious question because I want you to understand that this is a simple business, and my theory is that if we just execute perfectly on the little things, we can see dramatic increases in our business. So if we do an incredible job of executing on the basics, we will succeed at a higher level than we're succeeding now, and we don't have to do anything fancy or complicated or make our lives more difficult than they are. We just need to really focus on these few simple things we can do. So the question, what business are we in? We're in the appointment business, right? Our job is to make appointments with people face-to-face, right? Not on the phone, face-to-face with them. Once we do that, we have the opportunity to develop relationships. Relationships lead to sales. That's the business that we're in. So the first class I did, Marathon Lead Generation, talks a lot about how to set appointments. This class is going to go from the entire process of once you have the appointment to the closing. We're going to really work on how do we increase our conversion at the appointment. So Gary says we need to do about 11 appointments every week to hit our goals. And so once we have those appointments, we actually need to close and convert those appointments. So what business are we in? We're in the appointment business. We're in the business of getting in front of people, meeting with them, and getting them into contract with us, right? Perfect. So what do you do when you have an appointment? I think what people are doing, what I see in my experience, is when people have an appointment that there's no preparation, there's no process, there's no system that's going into it. What I want to do is teach you a process, a system, a way to systematically approach appointments with a long-term plan. And so let me give you the first example. When we get a new buyer lead, what we're not doing most likely is sitting down and having a purposeful buyer meeting with them. We're not sitting down with them and explaining to them the process of how the buying process works. We're not explaining to them how our agency works, and we're not setting their expectations as far as how to look for properties and make offers on properties. So when I teach you the buyer process, what's going to happen is instead of begging your clients to write offers or driving them around for months and months and months, we're going to very carefully narrow their idea of what their home is into a very sharp focus so that we're writing offers more quickly in the process, and we're writing better offers, right? Not everyone's going to play along, but the majority of your clients can be encouraged this way to give you a better end result. They'll be happier and you'll be happier. So what do you do when you have an appointment? Well, we're going to have a system of how we approach the appointment so that we get across our expectations and we get hired by the client, right? So what are the meetings we're doing, right? We're meeting with them first, the buyer meeting, which is really crucial. A lot of us are buyer-focused agents. That's fine. we're going to focus on how we get a higher conversion rate out of them. The buyer meeting ultimately will increase the number of buyers who work with you and decrease the number of bad buyers who don't work with you, right? They're equally important in my mind because we can eliminate the buyers that will waste our time at this part of the process. After that, we're going to work on how do we show property more effectively in order to get people to write offers, right? How do we show properties? How do we get them to understand the value of a property? How do we encourage them in the showing process to write offers? Now, the system part here is that a lot of the things that we teach them or explain to them or show them in the showing part of the process are things we started working on at the buyer meeting. And when I talk about a system, that's the system, is that it's a multi-level process of explaining the buyer process to them, keeping them focused on the end result, and allowing them to have clear expectations about how the process works. By doing that, you're going to have a long-term process to keep your buyers in line, keep them focused on what they want, and get them excited to buy a property, right? After that, we're going to work on writing offers. We're going to work on counter offers, negotiations, requests for repairs, credits, all of those things. We're going to work on how to talk to other agents productively and successfully so that we can get better results from those other agents. We're going to really explore how is it that you can call an agent and get a better result if you have an offer in with that agent, for example. Now, I'll give you an example. I do a lot of listings myself, and when I do listings, I can tell you that very few of the agents actually call me and pester me about the offer their buyers have written. What I want to show you guys, teach you guys how to do, is I want to show you how we can create a system for following up with the agent that not only gets you better feedback on your offer, but also shows the agent that they want to work with you better. So your second actionable tip of the call is going to be, what are we going to say to the buyers or to the seller's agents? We're going to have a system, a written program of how we contact them. So the first thing I want to do is I want to call, text, and email that agent showing them why I want the property, why my clients want the property. In that email, I'm going to show them value about why my client's the right buyer and why I, as the agent, am a great agent partner for them. Then I'm going to have my lender contact them by phone and email and tell them not only is the buyer qualified, but the lender is very excited about doing this loan, and that's going to generate a tremendous amount of goodwill between you and the listing agent. From there, we have a follow-up plan of contacting the listing agent every day until we get a counteroffer or acceptance, right? And by doing that little simple thing differently, we're going to really separate ourselves in the multiple offer field. That's going to help you in the buyer meeting when a buyer says, why are you the right agent? What are you going to do for me? You can say, I have a system for contacting the agent and working with the agent to get you into escrow on the property. Because ultimately, as a buyer's agent, you're evaluated based on how well you get the buyer into escrow. All right. And then the most important one for a lot of people is the listing appointment. We're going to do a lot of work on the listing appointment because people are doing the listing appointments entirely wrong. And what do I mean by that? So what's the right thing to do in a listing appointment? What are the things you should be doing? The best thing I ever learned about listing appointments is that listing appointments are not there for you to regurgitate your sales process onto the seller's table. What is there for you to do is for you to make friends with the seller and develop a relationship with the seller. Too many agents walk into the listing appointment and just want to pull out their stats or their glossy photos. And there's a time and a place for that, and we will do that. But the most important thing is developing positive relationship with those people so that you can develop a good relationship so that they hire you. Because as Gary shared with us at Family Reading this year, people work with people they like, right? So once the seller's invited you into their home, you can be sure that the seller thinks that you're a good fit for them on some level. Now you need to go and make friends with them. All right. Now, when we do all these processes, I'm going to document all of them for you. You're going to be provided with written systems to use, and I'll help you write out your own systems. But just to recap, those are the 5 things that we're focusing on: buyer appointments, seller appointments, showings, offer writing, counteroffer, request for repairs, and working with agents. And a lot of these things, you've seen a lot on listing appointment. We're not going to reinvent the wheel. We're just going to fine-tune it. These last 3 things, showings, offer writing, working with other agents, there's no training on it that I've ever seen before, and I think it's an incredible opportunity for you to increase your yield. And when I say increase your yield, I mean, we're so worried about finding new leads and finding new buyers and sellers. A lot of us have a lot of buyers and sellers already, and we're not converting them. And simply by increasing your conversion rate, it saves you a lot of time and headache on the lead gen side. Okay, so hope that all made sense. So, like I said, system. What's the key thing there? What are we really trying to do? We're really trying to create a system. And what a system is an automatic behavior. It's a habit. It's a process, right? When you wake up in the morning, and we talked a lot about this in Marathon Legion, if you've been on that call too. When you wake up in the morning, you have a system, right? You brush your teeth, you get dressed, you put your socks and shoes on, probably in the same order every day. You probably don't even think about it. What's the system we want to create around these things? So we're going to create a system of different components for the buyer meeting. We break the buyer meeting into 4 segments, and those segments are reusable for later on during the showing process. We break the seller meeting down also into 4 segments, and those segments are reusable for later on in working with the client, right? When we do showings, we have a really thorough process of how we do the showings, and we'll walk you through that in a second. But everything is documented because I don't want you to get to a showing and have to think about, well, what do I do now? How do I reinvent the wheel now? How do I decide something different? How do I figure out a different way to do this, right? I want you to walk in there knowing exactly what you're going to do, how you're going to do it, and I want you to get to the point where you've memorized it and made it a habit. You don't have to think about it. Okay, so let's talk about buyer meetings. Again, if you guys have questions, I've seen a couple so far. Just put them in the question panel on the right, and I can incorporate the answers or answer them directly for you. Buyer meetings. Who's doing a buyer meeting, and if you're not, why not, right? So this is a big question. A lot of people are not doing buyer meetings, or they're doing partial buyer meetings. I want to give you a very quick run-through of what I mean by that and how that looks to me. Buyer meeting means the first step in working with a buyer is meeting with them face-to-face, preferably at your office, with all the buying parties, right? Both partners, if there's 2 people. If the parents are paying, get the parents to come, but walk them through the whole process. We're going to walk them through the process step by step in different components. The first is rapport building. First, we're going to develop a relationship with them so that we understand each other and that we have a good rapport. Next, we're going to ask them for their buyer intake a second time to reinforce that we're interested in what they want to do, right? So you're welcome to write this down and use this. This is exactly how we're going to teach it on a Friday, but in a much briefer segment. After that, we're going to tell them the story of how they're going to buy a home, using anecdotes of our own or others, really help them understand the process in a friendly and neutral way. Then, to close, we're going to talk about agency. Now, 2 things will happen at the end. Either they sign a contract to work with you, in which case you have a live A buyer, or they decide that they don't want to sign a contract with you, and then you figure out why not. And a lot of times the why not is that they really have an agent they want to use, and they're just looking to use your time for free, or their cousin's an agent and wants to give them all the commission back, or they want to just call listing agents, but they're hoping that you have some insight for them. So the really exciting thing is you have a clean answer at the end of this meeting. Is this a good buyer for me or not? If it's a bad buyer, I'm going to encourage you to walk away. If it's a good buyer, I'm going to encourage you to throw your time into them. Now, the nice thing is in the process of telling them about the buyer process, the buying process, walking them through step by step, we walk them through the search process, the offer process, the request for a pair process. All of those 3 things can be used later on, right? When we talk about how we look for homes, that's going to be reused over and over and over again during the showings. When we talk about how do the offers work, we're going to use that over and over and over again when we're writing offers and negotiating offers. That way there's no surprises for them. And then in the request for a pair's credit part, we're going to use that over again later on, so they have a clear expectation of what that looks like for them, right? By setting expectations properly, you're going to increase your client happiness and your chances of closing them. Now, we'll give you all the scripts to close them. Everyone has their own form state by state. They're all roughly the same that I've seen. We're going to give you all the scripts and systems, give you this 4-segment buying meeting in detail so you can go and present one right after the class on Friday. So what we've seen as a team, by thoroughly implementing and actually requiring the buyer meeting, we've more than doubled our conversion on buyer leads, and our buyers agents are working less on the front end, which is calling, emailing, texting people. They're working more on the back end, which is buyer meetings and showings and writing offers. And that's something that's very easy to do. That's not a hard thing to do. All you have to do is learn this process and execute on it. Very simple. Okay, let's talk about showing systems. So showing systems will be a really good example for you about what we can do. Now, a lot of us, the mistake we're making before was we're not having the buyer meeting, right, or we're not having a full and proper buyer meeting. The mistake we're making on showings is we don't go to showings with a purpose. And what I mean by that is that when we go to a showing, We're just there to open a door and smile and chit-chat about whatever. We're not there to write an offer. And that's on us as the agent have the wrong mindset, right? When I go to a showing, I'm going to write an offer. I'm not going to show a property unless I'm sure that they're going to love this house and that they're probably going to write an offer. How do I do that? Well, a few ways. First of all, I've properly qualified them. I've had them sign a buyer-broker agreement. I've clearly analyzed and intake their buyer needs, and I've solved problems or eliminated properties based on feedback from other showings they've been to. Now I'm showing them a property. I know it's going to work for them. It's just a question of price. So going in with the right mindset will change the outcome of how all this works. When I show a property, my clients are asking me to write the offer because I've conditioned them properly during the buyer meeting, and I've properly needs analyzed them and helped them see the value in the property, right? So in this showing system, we're going to work on a few different techniques. The first is what I call the narrowing conversation. I'm going to give it to you now. It's part of a larger process, and these things all connect to each other. So the narrowing conversation happens in the buyer meeting. The narrowing conversation roughly says, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, the way the buyer process works is that we're going to start with a wide area, and we're going to narrow down. So the first time I show you homes, we're going to look at 5 or 6 homes, and we're going to eliminate all the areas and things you don't like. You don't like a second floor? Great. You don't like a pool? Great. You don't like this neighborhood or that neighborhood? Great. We're going to eliminate those neighborhoods. And then we're going to get to clarity. And in this conversation, you're going to tell them the following. The goal is within a few weeks for you to say, I want this type of home in this type of neighborhood, and you can use more specifics when you're having that conversation. I want a 3-bedroom home in Culver City between $1.3 million and $1.5 million. Great. As we continue the search, when that property comes up, we'll go see it right away and write an offer on it as we know that's the right property for you. When you have that conversation with them the right way, they know when that home comes up that they're going to drive and sit at home with you that day, that night, the next day, and we're going to write an offer because that's the home that they've told you they want. So when you go there and do the showings, you're continually reinforcing the lessons from the buyer meeting. When we do the showing, the question is not, do you like the house? The question is, what do you think the house is worth? Now, that subtle change in language is a big difference. Do you like the house? Is a yes or no? And humans reflexively love to answer no. Or they like to look for fault. When you say, what do you think the house is worth, it gets the buyers thinking about writing an offer. And they've already told you they like the home because they've already told you they want to be in a certain neighborhood, at a certain price, and certain features of a home. So our mindset is that we're going to write an offer from this property. Now, of course, there's times when they don't write an offer because there's something wrong. There's a flaw in the house. There's something we didn't properly screen out beforehand. But the majority of the time when I show a home, we're writing offers, right? So that system starts at the buyer meeting, and every time you do a showing or talk to them between the buyer meeting and the closing, you're having that same conversation over and over again. Which areas can we eliminate? What do you like and dislike? If I find you a house that has this solution to that problem, are you ready to buy it, right? Ultimately, the buyer wants to buy a home, right? They called you because they want to buy a home. So we need to take charge of this conversation with them. We're not looking to high pressure them into a home. We're not looking to hard sell them into a home. We're looking to guide their experience into a home that's going to make them happy, right? So let me know if you have any questions about that. We're going to go over that. We cover all that in about 2 hours of class. So I'm giving you the real quick version for today's promotion, but I really want to get you to understand that we're going to be covering this in extreme detail so that you can model and copy this in your own business. Right? Once you get to the showing, then the goal is to write an offer. When you write the offer, all the things about the offer come from the buyer meeting that have been reinforced in the showing and are then replicated in the offer process so that you can properly give them the right expectations to write a winning offer. And the last thing on there is really important, is the tell, don't ask. That's for Marathon Lead Generation, the first class. They're not sequential. You don't have to take one to take the other, although I certainly recommend taking both. You can take them in either order. But I want you to understand that we're not asking permission to write an offer. We're not asking permission to do a showing. We're not asking permission to do a listing or a buyer meeting. We're telling them that the next step is the buyer meeting, and the next step is to hire us to be their agent. So I want to really have a mindset change that I want to coach you guys on over the next 5 weeks to really help you understand that we can take charge of this process. We can improve the results not only for our clients but also for ourselves. Because if our clients are happier, we're going to be happier. We're going to get more referrals and have more closings. So here's about the class, and we've actually changed the name, so I need to update this. Here's what we're going to cover in the class. I think I've gone over it with you. We're going to really work on not only increasing yield, but decreasing time spent on people who won't get us paid, which is a function of increasing yield. If you sign up for the program in the next 2 hours, we're going to do a bonus scripts call. This will be a 1-hour scripts call that we'll do the next couple weeks that you'll be invited to. Also, today what we're doing, the first 5 people to sign up will get a free coaching call directly with me, a private coaching call with me. So if you sign up today, MAPS will send me the first 5 to sign up, and you'll get that coaching call sometime this week. The class starts Friday. It's 5 weekly 1-hour webinars. We're off next week, the week of Thanksgiving. All those webinars will be recorded, and you can play them back for your convenience. I would, in fact, encourage you to watch them at least twice and take notes both times. You can sign up at the email address below, and we'll also send you a link to sign up after the call with a recording of this webinar. The class is only $199. It's one of the least expensive MAPS group calls, and in my opinion, it's an incredible value because I guarantee that we're going to change how you think about your business, how you execute on your business. So that's the call for today. I really appreciate you guys being on. If you have any questions, feel free to contact me through Facebook or at my email, schulmanrd@gmail.com. And like I said, the first 5 to sign up will get a free coaching call direct with me, and everyone who signs up today will get the free group scripts call. So thank you very much, and I look forward to talking to you on Friday at the same time. Thanks a lot.